we've had clients that have baseball card collections. Like we have a client who also spoke to just yesterday and today, just because we're doing this podcast. So we have an individual who paid $7,000 for a 1952 Topps Jackie Robinson card in mint condition right before COVID. A few years later, a $7,000 card, a few years later sells it for $160,000. And I said, what regrets do you have? Do you have any cards that you regret? He had a 1933 Babe Ruth card, and I want to say it was a PSA 7 or a PSA 8. And for if you don't know cards, they get graded on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest quality. This was either a PSA 7 or a PSA 8. And he paid $2,500 for it in the mid 90s, sold it in the late 90s for $6,000. Today, though, he looks at that and says, that card is worth over $200,000 today. And I said, is that really is that painful? He said, it is, but it's like if I shouldn't have sold Apple. But then I said, well, what cards do you love? He's got a Michael Jordan rookie card, the Fleer, which is the one I know. But then he also has one I didn't know, and this is like debatably the real Michael Jordan rookie card. It's known as it was 1984 Star. It's the 101 card, and that's worth like $40,000. The Fleer one's worth $16,000. But then he also has his favorite card is a 1934 Gaudi Lou Gehrig card that I don't even know. It's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. He just says, I like it because it's just an attractive card.
So my question, and this may be for Alex, I guess, when you've got a client, and I don't imagine, they kind of come to you with this hobby or collection or property or, what it is they've got. You're not giving advice on what cards to buy, but what advice are you giving?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and that's a good piggyback off of what Randy was referencing here a moment ago. So the first client that he referenced, having about the $100,000 of artwork in their house, and she has about a $300,000 portfolio, you may think that off the top of your head, well, it's 25% of their portfolio value. It's probably not a good idea to have 25% of your portfolio value in one singular asset class, not to mention it's an illiquid asset class that probably fluctuates quite a bit because you can't sell it. So it's only worth what the buyer would actually pay for it. But Randy also referenced in that discussion there that she's not living off her portfolio. She has the flexibility, the financial means to be able to go out and buy those various artwork or buy the various pieces. That is how we ultimately determine day one or step one. When someone walks in our door with this artwork, we say, okay, well, you have this. Are you going to ultimately need it in the future because of financial means, meaning that you need a withdrawal or you need to have cash flow producing assets at some point in time? If that answer is no, then we say, hey, great, let's make sure you have the right insurance coverage. Let's make sure it's in your correct estate planning documents, so on and so forth. But if that answer is yes, then there's a process that we determine saying, okay, well, you are likely going to need to sell this over the next 10 years. You have a 10-year time frame until we believe that your portfolio, based upon Monte Carlo simulations, things like that may need to ultimately start selling these assets. And at that moment in time, we can start having the liquidation plan or the liquidation setup of saying, hey, this is how much it's going to cost to go to a auction. This is how much it's going to cost to go here, and have those conversations proactively, not a reactive conversation with the client of saying, hey, or they come to us and now they have $100,000 in their portfolio and $200,000 of artwork. And they say, well, I never wanted to sell this. We would say, well, if you remember a few years back, we knew that this was coming. This was definitely on the horizon. And this is the discussion that we had. Here's how much it's going to cost. Your artwork appreciated, which is great, but here's the different tax liabilities and things like that come about.
And to that end, and again, I keep asking you to put your professor hat on, but you're good at it. So to that end, Alex, what are we talking tax-wise? Do we get capital gains on this stuff, or what do we got?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it is long-term capital gains. I love to say when
some collectible rates
collectibles
too.
have a 28%.
It's a 28% tax rate. I always like to say, if I don't know the answer, I will definitely say I don't know. And that was one of the answers I actually didn't know.
That's actually something that we preach. Like, you have to have a sense of humility in this profession. If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know the answer.
And look it up, I can look it up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important part, right? Is that's what I love about, your firm is processes, right? I don't imagine a financial advisor starts off and goes, well, I better learn baseball cards, right? Like, maybe when they were growing up, they had some tops, right? Yeah. But like that's grown up, and all of a sudden you've got someone with potentially $1 million in baseball cards, right? So that you've learned it, right? The next time someone with collectible assets comes into that end, not necessarily baseball cards, but it could be another type of physical collectible, your firm's more prepared, their system, there's models in place.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that about what you do. And I can't tell you how important that is to that end. And so baseball cards and art, and what other kind of, we'll save land for the end. So let's hold off on land, but what other type of would you say non-stock and bond assets do y'all run into?
Does a Corey count as land?
That was going to be my next question.
It counts as a fascinating one. Let's get into it. Let's dig in.
We have an individual who 130 years ago, 2 Germans immigrated to Illinois and they started a Corey. This Corey has been so successful that now, 130 years later, this client owns just a 2.2% stake in this Corey. It's got to stay in the family.
All right.
She, on her 2022 tax return, reported $122,300 and some dollars of K1 income from the Corey.
Okay.
And that income,
that's a 2% stake.
It's a 2.2 to 2.3%
I just did some
stake.
math. We're good to go here.
It is. and
Exactly.
And that income, and then so these are questions that we ask. We say, okay, has there been any research done by the Corey to know like how sustainable is this? And it'll produce rock for over 100 years.
Wow.
So this is a very stable Corey. It's a stable income, and this has helped her max out her 401k. She now makes backdoor Roth contributions.
Sure, of course.
Just all these sorts of things and it's just something that because of the stability of that income, and she'll get Social Security, she'll get a pension, or no, she won't get a pension because she elected the self-managed Illinois, whatever.
Yep.
But anyways, her finances are phenomenal.